Hello, thank you for joining me on my channel and for clicking on the video. My name is Sean, I'm a real estate agent in Cape Town. And today I'm going to be talking about the costs of living in Cape Town. I think the general consensus around Cape Town is that it's a pretty expensive place to live or go and visit. And that might not actually be the case. It might not be what you think. When you are on holiday in Cape Town, you typically are doing the things that tend to be a little bit more expensive, and so your perception of the cost of living in Cape Town might be that it is quite a pricey place to live. I'm going to run through what the truth of the matter actually is. Before we get into it though, if you find this video helpful in any way, hit the like button, and if you want to be kept up to date on other videos about living in Cape Town or the real estate market in and around Cape Town, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified when I do release a new video. And as always, if you or somebody you know is thinking of making a move, you can find my details in the description below. You can hit the link to send me a WhatsApp or drop me an email or give me a phone call. I would love to chat. All right, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is salary. So while that's not actually a cost, it's an income, I think there have been some significant changes here that maybe change how Cape Town is viewed from a cost point of view. So salaries have been improving in Cape Town over time, and in fact, for the first time, it's overtaken Joburg as the place where you get paid the most. Now that makes a big difference because you pay your costs out of the salary you earn, and in the past, while there are some costs of living that have been a little bit more expensive in Cape Town, the salary hasn't quite matched, which means a larger portion of your salary compared to other places in South Africa goes towards your living costs. And that's not such a great place to be. With that being said, if you are making a move down to Cape Town and you are in a specific industry, you will need to look at it on an industry by industry basis and just take into account what that industry salary range is. It might not be true for all industries that your salary is higher than other places in South Africa, so just be very careful in looking at that number. The bottom line is this: with salaries improving, it means that you have more available after you get paid and have paid your living costs than you otherwise would have. That's not to say that things are all rosy. There are some elements that are a little bit more expensive than elsewhere in the country. And one of those is housing. And that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. Homes definitely tend to be a little bit more pricey than elsewhere in the country. And that's whether you're looking at buying or renting. It's a coastal town. Coastal towns tend to have slightly higher prices. It is quite a populous town, one of the biggest in South Africa, and that demand always drives property prices. And there is also a limit geographically on how many houses we can have in certain areas. And because that then limits the supply of homes, it means that it can't match the demand, and that pushes property prices up even further. So there is a little bit of a rule of thumb in Cape Town in terms of property prices. As you get closer to the mountain or as you go up the mountain, property prices tend to go up as well. And as you get closer to the sea, or as you get that beautiful sea view, property prices tend to go up as well. And so that means that there are still areas where you can get good value for money. As you move further away from the mountain, move up to the northern suburbs, you can get some properties that are very comparable to other areas in South Africa and that are in really nice areas. So your value for money can change depending on where you are in Cape Town. There's one thing that is slightly cheaper in terms of property ownership costs than most other places in South Africa, and that's your rates and taxes. Surprisingly, even though the house prices are higher, your rates and taxes do tend to be a little bit lower. So there is a bit of a saving from that point of view. Not enough to offset the higher home purchase or home rental costs, but it is still something that is in your favor. Okay, so the next biggest item in your budget is probably going to be groceries. So that's all your food and household goods. And in fact, Cape Town here tends to compete very well with other areas in South Africa. We've got a thriving agricultural sector which supplies the city of Cape Town, so our food prices tend to be very competitive. And you don't have the transport costs of a lot of the goods having to travel up into the inland areas of South Africa. That always tends to add a little bit onto the cost. And so our costs of your goods tend to be quite good. Maybe not quite as competitive as some of the other coastal areas, but certainly when you're looking at Joburg and Pretoria, it is very competitive, and in some cases probably a little bit cheaper. And that might be a bit of a surprise to some people, but it actually is very reasonable. So travel is another area where costs tend to be a little bit lower, and this also tends to be one of those areas that is quite large in the monthly budget. And the reason for this is that the fuel price in Cape Town, being a coastal city, is lower than the fuel prices in the inland cities, because you don't have those transport costs again to those inland areas. And the other thing about Cape Town is that it's geographically quite a bit smaller than a lot of the other bigger cities and metropolitans in South Africa. So your travel distances are actually a lot less. The net result is that your overall travel and maintenance costs for your vehicle is a lot lower, and your public transport also tends to be a bit lower, because those lower fuel costs get pulled through into lower tariffs for your public transport. So overall, transport does tend to be a little bit cheaper than other areas in South Africa. The last thing I want to talk about might not seem that obvious. It's something that we could always do with more of. It's something that when we lose it, we can't get back. If you haven't guessed already, it's time. So you might think, well, this is a weird thing to bring into a conversation around costs of living. But the bottom line is that Cape Town tends to work a little bit better than other places. If things don't go right, they tend to be fixed a lot quicker and a lot more effectively, which means that you're spending less time trying to get those things sorted out. And where something does go wrong, it is fixed up generally pretty quickly. That means that you're not spending time stuck in traffic because a traffic light has broken down. That means you're not spending as much time trying to get your electricity sorted out because a transformer's broken down the road. Those things tend to get sorted out rather quickly. And you can use that time that you would save otherwise being stuck in those situations, you could use those times more productively, or you could use it to live a better life. And all in all, that means less stressful living. So I think that's a really big factor in terms of the cost of living in Cape Town. And that's it. That's my roundup of the cost of living in Cape Town. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. As I mentioned, down below in the description, you've got my WhatsApp details, my telephone number, and my email address. If you're thinking of making a move, I'd love to have a chat. And if you liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. All the best. Bye.